Iranian nuclear threat has been approaching the 0 hour as Tehran advanced their nuclear promise to destroy Israel and then the United States with multiple nuclear weapons delivered by short, medium, and intercontinental ballistic missiles.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and human rights author of 300 editions in 40 languages in 190 countries worldwide, including IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, and my latest release, Israel Strikes Iran. You won't want to miss 20 years of investigative reporting and analysis on the Iranian nuclear bomb. Ours is a show for opinion makers and decision makers, not mass clicks. So if you think our show's content is meaningful, spread the word throughout your most informed networks. You can subscribe for alerts at theedwinblackshow.com. And if you want to support our work, we need your assistance. Please visit theedwinblackshow.com/support. Your help, big or small, assures our complete and utter intellectual and uncensored independence. Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support and keep us independent, and that includes you. Today's episode is made possible and sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by the Stram family, people who care about our people. And it's co-sponsored by my latest book, Israel Strikes Iran, Operation Rising Lion, the 20-year backstory, which will be immediately available everywhere across the planet in hardback, paperback, ebook, audiobook editions, as well as a special commemorative gift edition offered only at Barnes & Noble. And once again, I say, if you'd like to honor someone with a sponsorship, contact us. That said, remember, I only speak for myself and for history, and the same goes for my guests. Today, we welcome viewers from across America, including our 4 watch parties in the Villages, Newton, Mass., Chicago, and our friends in Tampa Bay. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from most of our usuals plus Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, Canada, Germany, Holland, France, Italy, Spain, Poland again, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Panama, once again, we have big viewership there, and the UAE, as well as Israel, plus other countries. If you have a question, place one short sentence in our Zoom's QA feature. The Edwin Black Show, along with our YouTube site, speaks frankly and without tremor to a fragmented world seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present, very, very tense, and a turbulent future still uncertain. By the way, stay tuned for my special word of wisdom at the very end of the show, just before I sign off. Now then, we all know why we're here. In the span of 2 weeks, the world was changed, the Mideast was changed, and the future of humanity was changed by the courage of Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump. For 20 years or more, the Iranian nuclear threat has been approaching the 0 hour as Tehran advanced their nuclear promise to destroy Israel and then the United States with multiple nuclear weapons delivered by short, medium, and intercontinental ballistic missiles, because international inspectors and trusted intelligence agreed that Iran was now just weeks away from assembling its first crude weapon. Trump gave Iran 60 days to negotiate a complete dismantlement of the program, including all existing 60% enrichment and further enriching infrastructure, as well as ballistic missiles. And because they undertook their decades-long practice of deny, delay, and distract, on day 61, Trump and Bibi agreed that they would unleash the massive might of Operation Rising Lion. The details of the IDF and Mossad destruction are now legendary. While Israel did possess several unimaginable weapon systems, the final decisive moment was when Donald Trump ordered B-2s to fly to Iran undetected and drop 14 massive ordnance penetrators, the MOPs, as well as 20 submarine-launched cruise missiles that completely obliterated Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Trump then negotiated a bilateral ceasefire, which is at this moment holding. My book, Israel Strikes Iran, which can be found at israelstrikes.com, is not, repeat, not a war diary, but rather a deep dive into 2 decades of preparation for this war story. It will delve into these details with unmistakable clarity and specificity. But today we are gathered to answer some of the many questions I have received before, during, and after this 12-day war. First, I take a moment to turn to a very human issue, a human aspect of this extraordinary story. That is the Israeli people and those in Israel who had to live in bomb shelters for at least 12 days. To give us a brief personal insight into that experience, living in a bomb shelter for 12 days, we turn to our regular contributor, threat analyst Ken Abramowitz, author of the best-selling book, The Multi-Front War. The 4th edition is just out. He was in Israel before, during, and after the conclusion of the Israeli-Iran war. He speaks to us now from Tel Aviv. Ken, tell us what it was like.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with your show, as always. So here I am in Tel Aviv since late May with a planned trip for 3 months till early August. And we guessed that we would be stuck in a war, a full-scale war, but we were psychologically prepared for it. We're in an apartment building in Tel Aviv, and like all apartment buildings, you have 2 forms of shelter. You have the stairwell, which is right nearby, obviously, and then you can walk down roughly 10 flights, in my example, to the big bunker safe room in the basement. So for 12 days, we got an alarm on our little phone. You can sign up for these alarms called red alerts. And we had, the siren went off. You jump out of bed like fast. You have about 5 minutes before boom, 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 boom. And you run out the door, you go to the stairwells, and then you start walking. And while you're walking, it's boom, boom, boom. And so it was almost always in the morning, early morning, like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, just to make sure you couldn't sleep so well for the night. And everyone went down in their pajamas. So we had like a pajama party in the basement of the apartment building. And 40, 50 of us showed up and said hello to each other and then watched the TV news. And then roughly 20, 30 minutes later, you get a little notice on your phone saying, ding, 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 you can go back. And so the only time it was scary, I mean, it's always scary to hear boom, 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 because you don't know how close the booms are. But there was one that was pretty close to us in the shock wave of the projectile blew out the front door glass of our apartment building. And that was the extra scary portion because it was like, boom, and it's like right there. And like anything like this, if the projectile was just a little bit here or a little bit there, you could have been one of the almost 30 people who were killed or the almost 1,500 people who were injured. So the country stopped for about 12 days, a little bit like COVID, and everybody worked at home. And the people who could work at home, let's just say half the population, kept doing whatever they were doing. The people who had to physically show up somewhere obviously couldn't. And as with COVID, that hurt people who have to work with their hands or legs or whatever they have to do. and by the way, no one was complaining during all of this. The only people who complained were the tourists, because the tourists weren't psychologically prepared for this. They were prepared to do what normal tourists always do, and they were seeking to leave. And so there were friends or acquaintances who were trying to leave to a boat to Cyprus or to go take a taxi to the Jordan border, and then they had cars or taxis who would take you to Amman to fly out. So a bunch of people were trying to leave, but we were psychologically prepared. And so I won't say we're happy, but we felt comfortable that the IDF was protecting us, either up above in the skies or in Iran. And so that was, now it's quiet. And as soon as the government said, okay, everyone go back to work, boom, I didn't mean boom like a bomb, just boom in an economic sense. Everyone's back to work and everything's working, and it's as if nothing happened, and it's business as usual. So that's my quick update.
Well, that's an extraordinary insight. So how many days were you obligated to get to the shelter? Was it every day for 12 days or more?
Yes. It was every day. Every day there was a siren. Every day there was a little ding, ding, ding on your phone. Every day you jump out of bed. Every day you go down in your pajamas. So it was like routine. But no one complained. I mean, that's what we had to do, and we did it. And fortunately, no one in our building was hurt in any way, and other than just the front door, which is so we escaped unscathed, except for that one scary boom that was a little too close for comfort.
So when you went to bed at night, you had to dress in your best pajamas. Is that correct?
Yeah. No see-through lingerie. No, not for me. So,
okay. Well, I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm sure others in the room are also happy to hear that. Okay, Ken, stick around. We got some questions, and we're going to start taking them now. Thank you very much for that fabulous explanation of what it was like to live there. Just a minute. By the way, do you know anyone who actually made it out to Amman by car and from Amman to Cyprus and all these other places? Were they treated safely? Was it hostile? What do you know about those guys?
I know two things. One is I didn't hear any stories of bad things that happened to people who left either to Cyprus or to Amman. And I'm sure the people in Jordan were on their best behavior. And I'm sure at the request of the American embassy. And the other thing, I did have two friends, close friends, who happened to be here, two women roughly my age from Southern Florida. And they asked my opinion. And I said, there's a 99% chance everything's going to go wonderful if you leave either to Cyprus or Jordan. And there's a 1% chance something bad will happen. I wouldn't do it. That was my quick email back to them, and they didn't do it. They hung around, and they'll be flying out in the next few days.
Right. Well, thank you, Ken. All right, here's the watch party in the villages. We're going right to the questions, folks. What do you think about the leaked intelligence, and is it treason? You are, this is from the watch party in the villages. You are referring to the fact that a low confidence, very preliminary estimate was leaked to a controversial reporter at CNN who really was, her entire record was put to shame in the White House briefing today. So you want to know if this is treason. First of all, as a journalist, I just couldn't bring myself to report on what is considered low confidence intelligence, especially on something I know so well as the Iranian nuclear infrastructure, because I know it's preliminary and 99% of the time it's misleading. So the reason people are saying it's treason is because the FBI is looking at it right now. They're suspecting somebody on Capitol Hill, and the Justice Department has made it clear that they're willing to not only prosecute staffers at the Congress, but any senators or representatives who also participated in this leak. I should say it's going to be mishandling intelligence is going to come under the Espionage Act. And so whether or not it's treason or a form of crime under the Espionage Act, I am certain that someone is going to have to answer. Clare is joining us. Clare, you're an expert on intelligence, having worked for the intelligence community. And what do you think about low confidence intelligence? Would you feel that was something that should be consumed and leaked?
No, I don't think it's treason. I don't think we should pay much attention to it. I mean, I think this is why God made delete buttons. And again, yeah, I think you were absolutely right, Edwin, that for this kind of, this is typical, maybe Democrat, maybe just left wing, the usual kind of tactics they pull. Don't pay any attention to this stuff. Dismiss it, forget it, and pay attention to what matters.
All right, Ken, do you think that the Trump administration overreacted to this leak because they could have said nothing and waited a day or two for this massive new intelligence to come out, which confirms not only from our own CIA, but from the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is a UN body, Israeli intelligence, and the other international inspectors? Do you think that Trump overreacted, or was the reaction just the way it should be?
I think the reaction was just the way it should be. I think when you have something like this, which could have been dismissed and people would forget about it a day or two later, I think it's right to punch back, so to speak, and intellectually punch back, because you're sending a message to the bad guy who was involved in this, but you're particularly sending a message to the next bad guy and the next bad guy and the next bad guy that we're going to embarrass the hell out of you with a press conference and ruin your career, and you might want to think about it. So I think that was good.
All right, thank you. All right, now from the watch party in Newton, Mass., how do we know where the missing 60% enrichment is? And the answer is they have ways of knowing where this is. I see Clare is disagreeing with me. Well, she'll come on later. First of all, you should know that the IAEA was able to track a single 83.9% molecule of enriched uranium. These radioactive isotopes give off huge signatures. They are trackable by drone, they're trackable by satellite, they're trackable by airline sensors, by vehicles with sensing equipment. Those of us who live in Washington, D.C., sometimes go down to the metro, and we sometimes see a little device on a tripod that looks like a kind of a ball. That is looking for molecules of noxious gas and irradiated material. So it's possible that they could. Now, a lot of people have seen this line of trucks at Fordow. The line of trucks were dump trucks, and they're there to either deliver or remove rubble, probably to remove rubble. The 60% HEU must be transmitted in super scientific containers in special vehicles. It doesn't take 40 dump trucks to move 900 pounds. So I doubt that they got those in. But remember, let's say they do have the 60%. If their centrifuges are down and not going to be rebuilt, and that's a different question that we must tackle because we have that too. If the centrifuges are not there to enhance the level up to 90%, 88 to 90%, and if the whole metallurgy part of it, where they turn that gas into metal and spheroid it and then line it with all these PETN groups to detonate this core, if that system is not available, and if the ballistic system is not available, then the program is, for all intents and purposes, obliterated and dead for a few years. I can't say it's going to be for 10 years. We don't know what's going to be because the Ayatollah is 89 years plus. He's got cancer. His son, there's rumors that he was assassinated. We don't know if the Shah's going to come back, but we can track that. And I'm told that Israeli agents on the ground have already given Bibi Netanyahu a pretty good idea of exactly where they are. Clare, what do you think?
Well, I know that Director General of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, has stated very clearly he and the IAEA do not know where over 400 and some kilograms, or that would be close to 900 pounds, of highly enriched uranium are. They have no idea. What we can be sure of is that the Iranians had prepared secret sites long before these operations ever began. And those secret sites may be known to intelligence services like the Mossad with the help, and I really have to give tremendous credit to the courageous extensive network inside of Iran of the Iranian resistance forces that helped Mossad to track and target the places that they did eventually get, on their radar to strike. But certainly, without a question, there are secret sites. We do not know what's there. Rafael Grossi and the IAEA do not know what's there, whether they have moved additional centrifuges there. What level centrifuges? What level of advancement? Are they the IR6s? Are they lower level? Or highly enriched uranium? I am convinced, of course, that the Iranians were enriching way beyond 60%. If that's what people are admitting, we know for sure they've gone above 90%, which is weapons grade uranium. Some of that may have been stored at Fordo. Some of that may have been removed by those trucks. By the way, those trucks, just as you say, Edwin, those were cargo trucks. They weren't cement trucks to block up the entrances to Fordo, as some have suggested. Cement mixers have a different look to them, the circular barrel. These were cargo trucks. So whatever they were doing on the way to Fordo was either to drop something off and or pick something up. And we don't know the answer to that right now. But bottom line, again, absolutely certain the Iranians have secret sites. I would expect that they have other centrifuges there, perhaps well beyond highly enriched uranium to weapons grade uranium, maybe even some of those missing stockpiles. But that's going to be up to intelligence, in particular Mossad, because we sure don't have any intelligence there. But the Mossad does, and we'll have to wait for, the completion of the BDAs, that is, the battle damage assessments, which are not available entirely yet. So we got to be patient a little bit.
All right, Claire, let me respond to your very excellent remarks. First of all, let's tell our audience that Rafael Grossi, that you have referred to as the director of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and these are the inspectors, the guys who keep track of this stuff. But Grossi and his agency rely upon electronic measures which have been installed on cameras and sensors, and they have no intelligence capability beyond their own measurements. And that is why when you look at their reports, before they get all the way to the governor level, they say, we assess, we don't know, this is what our instruments say, etc. Second, when you look at those satellite images of those trucks, they're not cement trucks. I didn't mean to say that. They're dump trucks. And the dump trucks have open beds. And if you're going to transport highly sensitive, those blue containers of specialized containers for highly enriched uranium, they're not going to be in open dump trucks, which can be seen. So I think it remains to be seen. But everything you've said, 60 is nothing. I'm sure they had 90% purity, or maybe it was 87% purity because they were 2 weeks away. And if they were 2 weeks away, that means they had the purity had been metallized or was about to be metallized, spheroided, and then put into the core of a warhead and into a Shahab 3 or that advanced missile that you know that they were developing. Thank you very much, Claire.
And one last real quick, and that is that we know from IAEA reporting itself, dating back at least a decade and maybe more, that the Iranians as far as I know, November 2011, look at the quarterly governor's report of that date, November 2011 of the IAEA. They were already at that time working on warhead development. Now, it doesn't take 14 years since then to actually have warheads. They might not have completed every part, every adaptation of the warheads to fit them, miniaturize them, ruggedize them to the nose cones of their ballistic missiles, but they have or had warheads.
Well, you're very right. They had the warhead. They had the warhead tested. They tested with tungsten in that big chamber with the yellow pipe. But the fact is that although they had 60 going all the way back, in order to buy time and lift sanctions from time to time, they would, under supervision and inspection, remove that 60%, and they would not destroy it or dilute it, and they would defer on installing their inventory of IR-6s. But there's another very important aspect, and that is motorcycles. What do I mean? I mean Mossad would have their trained agents on motorcycles. They would pull up next to these nuclear scientists, attach a bomb, they would be gone, the car would explode. So the reason that they've been delayed for this period of time has been sabotage, assassination, and other countermeasures. Thank you for that, Claire. Let's go to the watch party in Chicago, my hometown once. Has Trump been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the answer is Trump is an extraordinary humanitarian devoted to peace, and he's already averted, if you can possibly believe this, 3 or 4 wars. He settled a war in the Congo with their neighbors. They're getting ready to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. He averted a nuclear exchange between Pakistan and India, and the government of Pakistan, no great friend of America, has officially nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize. I doubt that the Ayatollah is going to nominate him, but it's a good possibility that many in Israel and the United States will nominate him. Ken, come back on if you can. And do you think that our friend Donald Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize? And do you think it will actually be awarded to him, especially since Obama got it for doing nothing?
Well, Obama I call a warmonger. He got us into these messes. So he definitely didn't deserve a Peace Prize. That was a fraud. So President Trump deserves a Peace Prize, but with an asterisk. It's still an incomplete. And bear in mind, when you have different enemies fighting, we use the word ceasefire. I don't know any of our enemies that use the term ceasefire. They use the word hudna, which is like, we're not going to kill each other for some period of time until I'm strong enough to kill you. But they don't use the word ceasefire. And the word unconditional surrender, which is a term we all know and love from World War II, I don't hear that anymore. So you can create the illusion of peace or the illusion of a ceasefire, but just set the stage for a bigger war another day. So that's why I would say right now he deserves an incomplete. If he called me or you or Claire or you, Edwin, I'm sure we'd give him some advice of how to upgrade that incomplete to an A++. But you won't believe this. He hasn't called me yet, and I suspect not Claire or Edwin. And so remember, he's torn between so many disputes with Democrats, disputes within Republicans, disputes within his own staff. So it's very difficult to make clear, strong statements when you have so many forces pulling and tugging on you. It's easy for us to sit in our chairs and say, oh, I would do this and I would do that. Why doesn't he see this? And but it's not so easy when you're sitting in the chair.
Well, you're generally correct that the Arabs and the Arab enemies do not use the word ceasefire. They use the word hudna, which means temporary truce or intermission. But in this particular case, I'd like to point out the Iranians were suing for peace early on, they were begging for it. They were beat down, and they themselves actually used the word ceasefire. What they said is, we'll call for a ceasefire if Israel will do a ceasefire. I think this time it might have been different. They didn't use the word hudna. I think Trump knows the word hudna, or maybe Claire can call him up after the show and tell him what it means. But I think in this case, we may see a ceasefire. But remember, the Iranians are extremely devious. They've used every ceasefire, pause, and interregnum to cheat and to steal and to prepare for the next opportunity. Thank you very much for that response. Here's a question from Steve in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. I don't know where Chambersburg, Pennsylvania is, but he said, what's the end game of the ceasefire? How do we get Iran to surrender unconditionally? This is interesting because it goes back to what Ken was talking about. Ken says, well, we don't hear the word unconditional surrender like we heard in World War II when MacArthur said you will now sign the instruments of unconditional surrender and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is, if I could remind Ken and if I could remind our audience, Trump set the tone with a 2-word post on Truth Social. And I think I'm the only one who doesn't know that, doesn't access Truth Social. But it said unconditional surrender. So wait a minute. I see that Claire is nodding her head extensively. Claire, let me finish with Steve. And so, Steve, I believe there is no end game when you've got bad actors like the Iranian regime unless the regime disappears. That's possible. Is it likely? We can't tell for now. The Shah is trying to muster his forces. The Ayatollah is 89 years plus. He's got cancer. He's getting ready to die. It's possible that his son who's even more radical than he is, has been assassinated or put out of commission. So there's a lot we don't know. Let's go to Claire. Claire, why are you disagreeing with me?
Because the only reason this Iranian regime would plead for a break is because they were getting clobbered. And the fact that the President Trump twisted Israeli arms with the mediation of, well, I guess it's our new BFF now. That means best friend forever, in short. Our new BFF, Qatar, to be the mediator, I think speaks to a catastrophic decision to grant the Iranian regime a breathing space in the middle of the operation before it was finished. We're going to regret that. We're going to have to go back. That means we and Israel, we're going to have to go back and finish the job. Never, ever should have allowed this to happen.
All right, we're going to cover that again because I know Ken wants to chime in too. And there's a 51% chance that you are correct. We've got questions coming. But anyway, Steve from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, asked what the end game of the ceasefire is. And in my view, if you've got people who have endured this much for 2 decades and they're apocalyptic and they believe it's their mission on earth, they're 12ers, they're Shia Muslims and they're 12ers, and they believe it's their job to bring paradise to the planet by taking out the Jews. I don't think they can ever be brought to a genuine ceasefire, except as Claire says, because they were clobbered. But they were clobbered, and we clobbered them good. Question is, are we ready to clobber them again as soon as they start to restart this? And that's an open question that we don't know. Let's go to Harvey in Tampa. How can the IAEA or any neutral agency, if there is such a thing, monitor compliance? It requires cooperation with the suspect country. Work and materials can be hidden. So, Harvey, the way the IAEA monitors compliance is with invasive surveillance. They go in, they put instruments in, and the instruments are in the cascade halls where they have these centrifuges going at 90,000 revolutions per minute. That's 1,400 per second, in case Ken hasn't done the math. And they monitor which ones they have, how they're working, how much enriched uranium is there. They're taking samples in the air. They're looking at, they measure what they call SWUs, separative work units. That measures how much spinning can be done per square foot to produce how much enriched uranium. So they have methods to do this. They're not foolproof. They can be fooled, and they're not tamper-proof. They can be openly disconnected. Anyone knows that you could take some hairspray and spray it on a camera. You could cause a momentary electronic pause, and the cameras will go down for a minute, but that is the main way. But remember, you know this, Harv, from the contracts you've negotiated. A contract is between two people who want to comply. If you want to cheat, there's no contract that can stop you. Claire, what do you got to say?
Yeah, what I would say is at this moment, the IAEA is blind. They have no monitoring devices left. They have no cameras functioning inside of any of the sites anymore. And in fact, even before these attacks, the Iranians had disabled a bunch of that stuff. So the IAEA is effectively blind. What we do have, and the only thing we can rely on now, I think, would be the internal Iranian resistance forces. I think they're comprised mainly of the Mujahideen-e-Khalq and their relationship with Mossad, which certainly will be continuing intelligence collection operations inside of Iran now and going forward. That's where we'll get the information from, not the IAEA.
I want to supplement what you just said about the IAEA. I will concede to you that the equipment is down, but that just testifies to the fact that if the equipment is right next to the accelerators, to the centrifuges, it's connected to them, it's right next to them, and the overpressure and the blast and fragmentation of the MOPS destroyed everything there. Then they destroyed not only the centrifuges, but the measuring devices attached to the centrifuges, which is why, Claire, the IAEA said, yes, we believe the whole place is destroyed. And that's because our surveillance equipment, which is right there on the floor in those halls, it was destroyed. You can't destroy one piece of tin and the next piece of tin is not there. Thank you, Claire. Joseph from Denver wants to know, how do we know how close Iran was to a bomb? Claire, take it.
I would say that the combined reporting information from the IAEA, again, they have a website that is public information, open source. They produce regular reporting on what they know. And then I would also recommend the open source website of David Albright's Good ISIS, as we call it, ISIS, standing for Institute for Science and International Security. Both of those are excellent sources of information. I think I would go back again to what I was saying before, and that is the only way before and now that we're really going to get any genuine, accurate information from inside Iran's nuclear weapons program. No, it's not dead. Yes, they're going to start it up again as quickly as they possibly can. The way that we'll know anything with any certainty, or at least high level of assurance, will be through clandestine operations run by the Mossad, working with the Iranian resistance on the inside. That's the only way we're going to find out.
Well, let me supplement Claire's intelligence stuff by saying that we know that they were within 2 weeks of a bomb because Mossad intelligence and other intelligence factors that are beyond the IAEA and the ISIS that I'm aware of, and that probably Claire is aware of too, made it clear that the first crude bomb was already ready. You see, they had the Ahmed project, and the Ahmed project was to create 5 nuclear bombs. In fact, I'm in possession of a tape transcript of the chief of the Ahmed Project, in which he was complaining that he wasn't getting enough money. And he said, they asked me to make 5 bombs, but they're not giving me the money to do it. You'll find that and many other details in my book, Israel Strikes Iran. That was a plug for my own book. So I know that they were ready. Israel intelligence knows that they were ready. American intelligence knows that they were ready. And I do not trust American intelligence. It was American intelligence that told us that there was a nuclear bomb in Iraq. It was American intelligence that told us that Trump was involved in this Russia hoax. It was American intelligence that told us that Hunter Biden's laptop was just Russian maneuvering. And so I don't trust American intelligence right now. Ken, from everything you know, do you think that Israel would have moved with this velocity had the weapon not been ready to go? Wasn't it a policy of Bibi that we will wait until the last minute? And is it not true that Bibi decided last November that this day would come, and he actually wanted to go for it in April before the information was leaked by a guy who's already going to go to the penitentiary? Ken?
Well, it had to happen. Someone had to do it. And America was hesitating. Europe has never built up the capability to do it, which is pretty strange. You would think Europe would want to protect itself, but it never did. And so Israel was the only candidate who was going to do it. So the question was, when did Prime Minister Netanyahu figure it was the last minute? Well, you can't wait till the last minute, because if you're wrong by a minute, you're in big trouble. If you say, we're going to blow them up next week, and then tomorrow they say, oh, we have 5 nukes on ballistic missile systems, and they're pointed at Israel, Europe, and America, you're too late. So you can't wait for the last minute. But just reading open source, what I saw on the internet was that the leaders of Iran gave the orders to put it all together. They had the different pieces, and they said, put it together and create a bomb. Now, you don't need any information to know that, because after Israel blew up the defenses of Iran in, I think, October of last year, Iran had no choice but to rush for a nuclear weapon. You didn't need to have spies or anything to figure that one out. So it was after the defenses were blown up, it was just a question of time till Israel was going to blow up the nuclear site. And then I think President Trump saw that Israel was doing so wonderfully by itself with American weapons, but so by itself, and Israel was about to get all the credit. I think Trump said, just guessing, wait a minute, what about me? I'm the leader of the free world. Yeah, you're not going to get all the credit. I'm going to get the credit. And then the military people said, we're not going to let we love the Israeli IDF, but we're not going to let them take the credit too. We want the credit. So I think what happened is the military and the political leadership came together and said, Israel's going to win this all by themselves. We have to show up. It will be embarrassing. And then they showed up at the party.
Hey, Ken, what's the difference if we destroy this capability 2 weeks before it's ready, 2 months before it's ready, or 2 years before it's ready? Do we have to wait until they're ready to deliver this weapon in a truck-borne missile delivery system? Or can we take it out when the intentions are clear, when they've been working on it for decades? Just give me a brief response. Do we have to wait till the last minute, or can we take it out as soon as it's possible?
Well, I'll give you 2 answers in less than 1 minute. In a perfect world, I always say to myself when there's a dilemma, in a perfect world, what's the answer? And then I say, but we don't live in a perfect world, so what's the answer? So in a perfect world, it should have been blown up 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. You cannot let an Islamo-Nazi death cult who's promised to kill all the Christians in America and all the Jews in Israel develop a nuclear weapon for 1 week. So in a perfect world, it would have been blown up 20 years ago. We don't live in a perfect world. So our politicians wait. And then when they have no choice but to make a decision, they make a decision. Welcome to the world of democracy.
Okay. So, and by the way, I just want to make a remark for some people listening. You said that Obama was a warmonger, and I would like to specify that in my book, it will explain completely that Obama knew and John Kerry knew that the hundreds of millions of dollars that they were giving to Iran in sanctions relief as part of the JCPOA was creating murder machines in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for your comment, Ken. Let's go to Tampa again. My other question was in regard to radioactivity. If any of the enriched uranium was bombed, wouldn't it have created a measurable level of radioactivity? Yes, it would create a measurable level of radioactivity, but it's already been sensed, if I could use that word, surreptitiously and officially, and it's been decided that whatever was done to Fordo, to Natanz, to Isfahan, and other places did not create a radioactive hazard beyond the type of hazard that you would get through normal background radiation. Thank you very much, Tampa. All right.
Edwin, they also bombing with the GBU-57s, these great big bombs, right? At Natanz and Fardo especially, they basically piled tons of rock down on any possible radiation escape. It may still be measurable in quantities that are minute, but that's another benefit of why the U.S. Got involved to bomb these places, because they basically took the top off the mountain at Fardo and dumped it on top of the halls, the centrifuge halls underneath that held the centrifuges and possibly, highly enriched uranium, maybe weapons grade too.
Claire, if I could augment what you said, all the testing to this point for these MOPS, and I was the first one to reveal the existence of the massive ordnance penetrator years ago, and you'll see my exact exclusive reporting on that many years ago in the book Israel Strikes Iran, and I think Claire's got an advanced copy of that. They were measuring concrete, soil, mountain slopes. That didn't happen here. These went through the ventilation shafts, and the ventilation shafts were unobstructed, and so they went down at greater depth, and the fuses were timed. Remember, only about 23% of the massive ordnance penetrator is a bomb. The rest of it is an incredible penetrating device that makes a small hole and goes down, 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 down. So you're not going to see a crater. But what you will see is when that blast blows everything out from 200, 400 feet down, then you see those gray areas that we have seen on the satellite photos. Thank you. Sherry I believe Sherry's in Massachusetts. I believe in Brookline, Massachusetts. And she says, what do you think the reason was that President Trump blamed Israel for responding when Iran broke the ceasefire? I'll answer that. He hadn't slept for quite a bit. He was tired. He was irritated. He thought he put the ceasefire into place. Iran broke it because generally when a ceasefire with these types of enemies goes into effect, they always like to throw a few in there to show that they know how to violate it. But Israel responded with a massive, massive barrage, and he just screamed, I want both of them. And I think he used a bad word. Claire, did he use a bad word?
Yes, I heard the beep out on TV, yes.
Okay. But right now, Trump is so fond of Bibi and so fond of Israel, he's telling these idiot judges in Israel that they've got to stop prosecuting him for accepting, believe it or not, gifts of cigars and pink champagnes, which they're calling bribery. I don't know how many cigars one man can smoke. Here's another question. Marina in London, what were some of the unique weapon systems you alluded to but wouldn't specify? Wouldn't you like to know? But I'll tell you this one. I'll tell Ken afterwards. And if you can squeeze it out of Ken, then Ken might tell you. This special weapon was delivered right after the war began. I saw the pictures. And one day we'll discuss it. It had the green stuff on top. I'm aware of it. This one weapon with the initials RD, this one weapon could do in 1 hour what a squadron of airplanes could do in 2 days. So, but they didn't use it because the MOP came in. Let me just ask Claire. Claire, you don't know what the special weapon is, right?
If there's any particular one, no, but we certainly do know the capabilities of the Israeli Air Force and how they have performed elsewhere, like places like Beirut, for example, and the tactics they can use with perfectly open source kinds of attacks and weapons. Very, very effective, and it's a testament to the skill of those IAF pilots.
Well, if I tell you what the secret weapon is, will you promise not to tell anyone else?
Cross my heart and hope to die.
Okay, good. Let's go to another question here from Sherry in Massachusetts. What is the truth about what happened in Gaza, where everyone is blaming the IDF for shooting a bunch of civilians? It's not our topic, so I'm not going to answer that question, but I will say this. It's very, very common that Hamas does the shooting and they blame Israel. And it's even more common that Hamas creates a situation that Israel responds to, and then it turns out that they've fallen into a trap. But Sherry, thank you very much for that excellent question. Here's one from Rita. The Muslim world was silent for the most part. Any support for Iran left? That is a great question. Ken, is anyone supporting Iran right now other than the Democrats?
No one that we know of is supporting Iran, but there is someone who's supporting Iran. I'll just mention this because the ceasefire called by President Trump was not logical. Israel was about to decimate the country in 5, 10, 15, 20 days. All he had to do was wait. And someone called him and told him not to do that. So I don't know who that person was or that country was. I'll just throw out a few names. Did Saudi Arabia call and say?
It was not Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Well, Qatar, did Qatar call and say, save my other death cult friends?
Yes, it was Qatar, and Claire previously called them our new best friend. But yes, they are our new best friend and our worst enemy all at the same time. We'll be doing a show about that later. It's a little complicated. But what we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, in the coming days and weeks, not weeks and months, but days and weeks, what we're going to see is Arab and Muslim countries joining the Abraham Accords. You will be shocked, but a discussion is deep ongoing with Syria right now, Indonesia, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and others. So Rita, thank you very much for that question, and I'm looking forward to having sushi with you guys. Here's another question. What is this? Maureen in Queens, what do you make of the primary win of the anti-Semitic Israel radical Iranian Zohran Mamdani? Well, first of all, this radical Democrat is not Iranian. He's actually Ugandan. He was born in Uganda. So listen, I would say that the Democrats are hurting themselves in ways that we can't imagine. And right now they're becoming a fringe party. And I hear people saying, well, the people with money and with means are going to leave for Texas, Florida, and North Carolina. They don't care. They want New York to collapse. They want Portland to collapse. They want to pick up the pieces. So right now, they had a terrible choice between Cuomo with the busy hands, and now they got Eric Adams, and someone is going to have to win this election. But the Democrats are just descending into monstrous anti-Semitism on behalf of a growing segment of the party. Ken, did you know that in a recent poll, well-founded poll, only 12% of the Democrats said that they only 12% said they supported Israel. What do you think about that?
Well, the Democrats over my lifetime have moved from a loyal opposition to a disloyal opposition. And President Obama, I think, fingerprints are all over that. And so now the question is, what do you do with a disloyal opposition who's actually loyal to our enemies? The Democrats are working for, you name the enemy, China, Russia, Iran, Qatar, UN, World Economic Forum, you name our outside enemy, the Democrats represent that outside enemy. I think it's time for the FBI. I think he should be arrested for providing material support for terrorism.
Who do you mean he?
The winner of the primary, the Democrat winner, our Ugandan friend. I think.
Oh, that guy. Well, it's a little early. We got to wait for him to actually commit a crime before we arrest him. That's what
well, incitement for terrorism, incitement for genocide.
It's possible that he could be arrested for that. There's no question. Now, look, we've got
Edwin.
We're out of time.
I got to add about Mamdani.
Very
quickly, both of his parents are of Indian descent. His father is a Ugandan citizen. But here's the important part, and why it's important now, because Mamdani is an Islamic Shiite 12er. He put on Twitter some years ago that he is a follower of Ithna Ashra, which means he's a 12er, just like the regime leadership in Iran. That is at least as bad as his Marxist communist credentials.
Yes, it's true that his parents were part of that Indian merchant community, just like Ali Velshi from CNN. You've heard of CNN. And it was Idi Amin in Uganda that suddenly expelled all of those Indian merchants in Uganda some decades ago. I didn't know that this guy is a 12er, and we're going to have to look at that. I'm just going to go very, very quickly here, guys. And that's it. Rami in the UAE. We have viewers in the UAE now. Was the ceasefire done correctly? Is it too soon? And will it last? We've already discussed this ad nauseum, but I'm going to ask Ken to give me 15 seconds. Will the ceasefire last? Ken.
The ceasefire can't last by definition. Iran, President Trump doesn't know this. Iran has 600,000 worldwide terrorists. And 300,000 physical terrorists, 100,000 narco-terrorists, and 200,000 cultural terrorists. He didn't call for that to be shut down. As long as those 6,000 people are on the Iranian payroll, they're working on destroying Israel, America, killing all Christians and all Jews, and when they have time, all the Hindus. So the ceasefire doesn't mean anything by definition because they weren't forced to agree to anything.
All right, Claire, in 15 seconds, get a stopwatch. Is the ceasefire going to hold or will it not hold?
No, absolutely not. The Iranian regime remains in power. Unfortunately, the Iranian people are not able by themselves without external help to overthrow that regime. And it remains, whatever's left of it, completely 100% committed to going right back to work on obtaining a deliverable nuclear weapon. That will have to be countered by the Israelis, if not us too.
Well, I wish you were wrong, but I'm not sure you are wrong. But I will say we're out of time. So I want to hold my closing word of wisdom just 2 minutes away. But first, I want to thank my very knowledgeable guests, and I mean Clare Lopez and our friend Kenneth Abramowitz in Tel Aviv. I also thank my talented international crew, including Nick in London, Christine in Indiana. Hi, Christine. Richard in the Philippines, as well as many others in numerous additional cities around the world. I'll see everyone back here in 2 weeks at 3 p.m. Eastern for my book launch, Israel Strikes Iran. You'll learn much, much more, and you'll have an opportunity to buy the book. You want to be a friend of the Edwin Black Show, go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. Keep me independent. You want to hear me in person? Watch my website for events or call Harvey in Tampa. Consult my events page at edwinblack.com. Until then, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the USA or any Amazon, Walmart, iTunes Books, Google Books, Kobo, or audible.com platform in 190 countries across this roiling, toiling, boiling planet where you can find any of my 300 book editions, such as IBM and the Holocaust, Banking on Baghdad, and Israel Strikes Iran, which is at israelstrikes.com. You want an autographed copy? Hit edwinblack.com and click books. Get access alerts to participate live in future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this show and prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show. Click the notification button like tens of thousands of others have. Follow me at Edwin Black Book on X and Facebook. And now for my closing word of wisdom. If you run from your history, you'll be running in a circle. I'm zooming out from our nation's capital. Bless all of you and pray for all that is unfolding before our very eyes.